Is it possible to become happier in life? Really happier, not like even 10%, but really much happier. Well, Buddha does have an answer to this and even a path forward. Buddha taught that we can actually be much happier. I think of Buddhism as more like the religion of happiness because we train our mind in the causes of happiness and train our mind out of the habits that cause us suffering and pain. And I can say that I have become happier and happier over the last 25 years that I've been practicing. I've been teaching Buddhism for 20 years, and I even studied on a teacher training program for 10. And I can definitely tell you from my experience that I have become much happier. My relationship, my 11-year relationship, has gradually improved. I know it's amazing and definitely due to the Buddha's teachings. Buddha taught that the mind creates everything. In the Dhammapada, which is a collection of Buddha's actual words that he spoke 2,500 years ago, the very first verse of the Dhammapada, Buddha says this: all experience is preceded by mind, led by mind, made by mind. Now, what this means is all our experiences, our whole world is created by mind, preceded by mind, led by mind, actually made by our mind. So your individual world and my own unique world are uniquely created by me, and your unique world is created by you, and specifically your thoughts. What are your thoughts creating? If our mind is like an empty vessel, what are we pouring into our mind? Is that vessel filling up with peace? Or is that vessel filling up with anxiety or fear or worry or anger or jealousy? Now, there is actual mechanics to how this works, what we do with our thoughts. Now, when our mind is unpeaceful or uncontrolled, the Buddha called this a delusion. It's also sometimes translated as a mental affliction or a klesa, a mental affliction, a delusion. And what it means is that we're seeing the world in a distorted way, right? We're not seeing things as they actually are. For example, when we're angry, when that delusion of anger is arising, our mind is unpeaceful, doesn't feel good. It's uncontrolled, but also it arises in a very specific way. Now, all delusions, whether the delusion seems to be pleasurable, like desirous attachment, where we're desiring something that seems super pleasant, or whether the delusion is painful, like anger or jealousy. Jealousy is so painful, isn't it? Buddha said it's like a thorn raking through the heart. Either way, a delusion arises in the same way, whether it is from a stimulus that is pleasant or a stimulus that's very unpleasant. Knowing this formula can help you to dissect it and change its course, right? So, for example, if you encounter something unpleasant, let's say somebody says something you perceive as rude. You think it's rude. Now, recently, I was spending some time with my little 3 nieces, 3, 5, and 8. No, 3, 6, and 8. And the 8-year-old said to my partner, "Oh, we were at the Dairy Queen getting them ice cream." He said, "So, she said, I'm going to go get some Diet Coke." That's what my partner said. And then that little 8-year-old goes, "Why? Are you a big back?" Big back? You know what big back means? Well, it's this new term they have for fat, big back, which I really think is quite mean. I would not be using this phrase, big back, because everyone is already very self-conscious about their back fat. So big back, it sounds bad. And so my partner says to that question, are you a big back? Or I don't know if the question was, are you drinking Diet Coke because you're a big back, or are you a big back? But either way, she replied, yes, which she really is not. But I just thought that was so funny because she could have taken it completely differently. Someone calls me a big back. Oh, I don't know if I would have such patience because it's really mean, right? So let's say someone says that to you. It's obviously unpleasant, right? It's an unpleasant stimulus. And honestly, it's only sound waves. It's actually just sound waves coming in. But we interpret it, and that initial experience of someone saying something unkind or rude to us or mean, it doesn't last very long. The mind perceives it, recognizes it, and due to our own karma, we react in a certain way. Because we have perceived it in a certain way, we feel something that is either pleasant or unpleasant. In this case, we might find it very unpleasant. Someone else might think it's really funny. I think she thought it was funny, actually. Let's say you have an unpleasant feeling that arises. Well, that feeling alone doesn't last very long. It's short. Unless you do one thing, the delusion of anger or hurt or whatever might come from that initially unpleasant stimulus or unpleasant outer object. What happens is we start to dwell on it. Our mind gets hooked on it. We start thinking about it. Oh, how rude, how mean. Oh, and oh gosh, what am I wearing? Maybe I don't know, and you start going down the road of what Buddha called inappropriate attention. Inappropriate attention is the factor that causes delusions to actually arise. I know. So the formula would look like this. We have, we have an object, which is like that stimulus. Someone says something to us, and that initial feeling, oh, unpleasant feeling, plus, right? So it's an object plus inappropriate attention, that dwelling. We keep dwelling and dwelling with our mind hooked on it, not letting it go, and having these thoughts in the same train, the train to suffering. That train has left the station and it's suffering until we've dwelled on it for so long that our mind becomes unpeaceful and uncontrolled. And that's the moment we have generated that delusion of anger. Anger is recognizable once the mind is unpeaceful and uncontrolled. And it is painful, isn't it? That mind of anger. And when that mind is uncontrolled, that's when we say and do things that we regret, right? Because it's feeling out of control and we just want that pain to stop. And out of that pain or fear or whatever that aversion is, we might act in a regrettable way and create some negative karma that causes unpleasant experiences in our future, right? The result of those actions coming out of a delusion cause us suffering in the future. That bad karma, bad karma. Everybody believes in karma these days, right? But karma really means action. Our actions create causes for the future, happy or unhappy. Now, interestingly, the same thing can happen with something we find really pleasant. And our mind gets hooked on it. Like maybe you see somebody, you think, ooh, that person is so hot. Maybe it's like someone at your work. Ooh, they are hot. And then you find out they're married. And you're like, oh, but they are hot. So you have a choice here, right? Yes, it's pleasant when you see them and their beauty or handsomeness is very pleasant. But It's the dwelling, isn't it? You start to dwell and you start to fantasize and you start to think about them. Oh, but I'm sure I would be better with them. You start looking at their social media and all their photos and start imagining what they're like. And then you befriend them and then you're texting. And do you see how all this goes on? This dwelling, the dwelling and dwelling on our objects of attachment cause eventually our mind to become hooked. And that's when the mind of attachment has arisen, right? Where it's like the mind of attachment, they say, is like putting really sticky tape on your arm, like serious tape, like the serial killers use, to tie you up or whatever, like serious tape on your arm. And then you pull it off, and that tape hurts coming off. Attachment hurts when you don't get the object of your desire or when it's disappointing, right? You get that object you desire and then it disappoints you. And the feeling that comes from this dwelling is a mind being riled up. I don't know if you've ever had this, but you try to go to sleep at night and then all night maybe you're looking on your phone for like, oh, you're just really excited about something. It doesn't have to be a person. It could be a double kayak. And all night long you're looking at double kayaks. Double. My partner recently was looking for a double kayak for us, and I asked her, I thought it was like a day, but it wasn't. It wasn't even a week. It was a month looking for this used double kayak. Okay. And she was just obsessed. That obsessed feeling it's not that great. It's unsettled, And it leads us to the point where we're probably, potentially going to we're going to be disappointed, potentially. Eventually, we'll be separated from that object when it breaks or it dies, or we aren't able to get it. We can't get that object we desire. And so all those scenarios end in suffering and pain. And the way that we can stop delusions, jealousy, attachment, pride, anger, and all the forms of anger, resentment, guilt, which is anger directed towards yourself, mild irritation, all the way to rage. The way that we stop delusions from arising is noticing when inappropriate attention has started to arise. We can't help the objects we come in contact with. That's the way that we're influenced. Someone really pleasant or something really pleasant comes along or something really unpleasant comes along. And we have that initial experience and feeling. But whether we latch on, that is the difference. Say you're going to take out the garbage one night and it's stinky and smelly. You have a lot of aversion towards it. You're supposed to put it in the garbage can. But hanging on and dwelling with inappropriate attention onto something that causes us suffering, it's an unpleasant object. Doing that is like putting that garbage in the back of your car because you're going to drive it to the dumpster maybe, right? You put the garbage in the back of your car and then you forget and you never take it out. And you're just driving around, right? Being resentful, being angry, and it stinks. You're driving. It's like, what stinks? What's that smell? And it's really just your own mind, right? You're talking to them as you're driving home. Like, ooh, I'm going to tell them. I'm going to tell them. That's what I say to my little dog after she's gone pee. She gets excited. I say, tell them. And that's what we do, right? We're going to tell them. We labor over it in our mind. But it's us that's stuck with it. That person that hurt us, they're not being harmed by these resentful thoughts or when we're telling them off as we're driving. They're not bothered by it at all. It's only us that suffers. It's only us smelling that stinky stink, right, that you have placed there. So this is the beginning of understanding how this works. And what I encourage you to do in daily life is start to see how this happens. Can you pick out the parts of this formula? coming into existence. So perhaps the next time you get angry or irritated about something, see if in retrospect you can just see how this happened. Okay, this person did this and I didn't like it, but I started dwelling on it. And I spent a long time dwelling on it. I worked myself up. That was the inappropriate attention that led to my anger. If I had just let it go, it would have been fine. In fact, it wasn't really a big deal if I hadn't just said something without thinking much. It would have been fine. It was really no big deal. It was just that the moment I was experiencing that pain, I latched on and I didn't let go. And I started thinking in a way. The thinking is actually what's causing us to perceive the object as unpleasant. We think it's an unpleasant object from it's coming at us. Like, hey, what are you doing there? In reality, it's our mind projecting those unpleasant qualities. We're paying attention to aspects that we find unpleasant. Right? If you see someone and you have compassion, you're thinking about their suffering at that moment. Gosh, this person is really a jerk, but they really have had a hard life and they're going through a really rough time. And so that way of thinking with this feeling of compassion, it's paying attention to different aspects of this person that keep our mind calm and peaceful. If we pay attention to the kindness they've shown us in the past, we think, oh, mom, you're so annoying. Or, oh, mom, you're so kind. I know you're just worried about me and it's come across the wrong way or something. But it's very different having a state of gratitude than focusing on what irritates us about that person. Looking at another person, are we looking in their garden? Or are we looking in their garbage? If we're looking in their garden, our mind can remain peaceful. It stays appropriate attention, how they've been kind, how they're going through a rough time, these beautiful thoughts of empathy coming and compassion, kindness, wishing them to be happy. Or if we're looking at their garbage, their faults, their what they've done to harm us or things like this. It's all what we focus on. Again, what we focus on creates our whole world. All experience is preceded by mind, led by mind, made by mind. Think or act or speak with a mind filled with delusion, and suffering is going to follow us. But if we think or act or speak with a peaceful mind, happiness follows. That's what Buddha said. If he said this in this, the second verse, the Dhammapada, all experience is preceded by mind, led by mind, made by mind. Speak or act with a peaceful mind, and happiness follows like a shadow that never leaves you. Like your shadow. He said happiness would be like your shadow, like there's my shadow, and it's called happy. Wouldn't that be great if our shadow was called happy and it never left us, like the shadow of a body? We were never separated from this happy, welcoming, peaceful feeling. I want us to have this. I want you to have this. It is completely possible by training your mind. That's what Buddhism is. It's open to anyone of any religion, going all the way back to Buddha. Buddha never said you have to be a Buddhist. I mean, I think that came about after him, this Buddhist thing. But he said, you have this ability within you to be happy, because happiness, the sources come from within. You don't need a lot of money, beauty, fame, nothing. Those things may or may not be causes of happiness or suffering. It all depends on your mind. I'm sure we know people who are really, really rich, for example, or really, really hot, but miserable, so miserable, even with seemingly all the causes to be happy. I bet you know someone who's rich, famous, and hot and unhappy. So you can lack all the external causes and actually have the deepest, inexhaustible well of happiness within. I'm going to continue on with this in a few other videos so that you have actual practices to do and meditation to be able to look at your mind and see this for yourself. So I hope you follow along with me, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I will see you again, I hope.